Hey guys, it's Casey and welcome back for another Unreal tutorial. Today we are going to go over how we can kind of do interactive main menus. We don't just have to do a blank black screen behind our main menus and just have some clickable buttons. We can actually do a little bit of work and actually like spice up and make our menus a little bit more interactive. And I want to show you like some of the simple ways that we can do that. So what I'm actually going to do is, before I start, this is just the default third-person project. You could really do this in any project. There's not anything special about this, but there's a little tiny bit of setup that we're going to do first. The first thing I want to do is I want to delete my third-person character out of the world because I don't want to possess this character. Since we're doing a menu, I just want to have kind of a blank character that doesn't really interact with anything. So inside of my content folder over here, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to add a new blueprint class, and we are going to do the class of pawn. We want it to be an actor, we want to be able to possess it, but we don't need this character to be able to walk around or anything. So I'm going to create a new pawn class, and I'm just going to call this like our main menu pawn. And from there, we don't have to do anything else with that pawn. That pawn is good to go, but I am going to drag it into the world, and then I'm on the right side with it selected. I want to auto possess player. I'm going to set that to be player 0, so that when we start this main menu map, we hit play, we will possess kind of this blank kind of nothing pawn that has really no inputs or anything involved with it. That's exactly what we want with it. The next thing I'm going to do is for this tutorial, I'm just going to make 2 quick widgets. So I'm going to create my first widget, and I'm just going to call this like MM1 for like main menu 1. This is just some example widgets so that we can show you how we can use this. And really, I'm just going to add a button. I'm going to scale it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add some text to it. And inside this text, I'm just going to say like go to menu 2. That works for me. I just want to make sure on a few things. You probably wouldn't run into this issue, but I'm just make the text to be hit test invisible. That's good for me. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to duplicate this menu, and I'm just going to call it main menu 2. That works perfectly fine. And I'm just going to make this one just go back to menu 1. That works. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add these widgets into the world. But we're not going to add them to the player's viewport. We're going to add them as 3D widgets inside of the world. So what we can do is I can click on this cube here, and I'm going to make it a blueprint. So with it selected in the top right, I'm just going to hit this blue button. It's going to make it into a blueprint. That's fine with me. And now with this selected, when we're inside of our viewport, in the top left here, what I want to do is I want to add a new component. And if I type in widget, you can see we get a widget component. We can add that. And then with it added and selected, what we can do on this right side is the widget class. I can make this the main menu 1. And that if we drag this out, let's see, do we need to compile it? Let's see. We might need to rotate it. Let's see here. This is the one issue. We need to figure out how we can visualize it. Sometimes this is an issue. Let's see, is this all compiled? Yes. Let's see, if I save and compile it, if we go into the 3D world, can we visualize our blueprint? So the widget is there. Let's see, what if I go back? Do we need to set its centering to be center? Let's try that. And now let's go back and let's visualize. Let's compile this again. Let's see here. There we go. Is that popping up now? I think it wants to. There we go. Now it pops up. Sometimes this widget blueprint component, it can be really fiddly. There's been some bugs in the past where sometimes it disappears completely and you need to recreate the component. So just know that after you do your initial setup with this and everything's good to go, you won't run into any issues, or you shouldn't run into any issues. But these widget components, they have some bugs involved with them. So if you're getting it to not appear, just go back and compile the first widget, or the actual widget itself, and then maybe come back and compile your actor. It can be a little weird. So this is a bit too big, so I'm just going to set the scale down. Let's try 0.2 on everything. That works for me. And now you can see here is that this widget is going to be physically on our cube. We're just going to attach it right on to the cube, and this is kind of we can pretend maybe this is like a radio, or maybe this is a book inside of our main menu, and we can put like the widget on top of it. So that's what we're going to do there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Why did that raise up? Did I alter something I shouldn't have? Let's see. Huh, that's weird that that raised up. So I'm not sure why that raised up, so I'm just going to take my light and I'm going to set it to be movable. I'm going to take my light source, set that to be movable just so the lights equal out. I'm going to lower this back down. Oh, I think I raised it up when I was fooling around trying to get the widget to appear. That's what happened. And then I'm just going to select one of these other things. I'm just going to create this random piece of wall, and I'm also going to make that a blueprint. That works. And now on this one, what I want to do is I want to add the second widget to be on this face right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on top left. We're going to add a new widget, and that works. And now on the right side, the widget class, I want it to be the main menu too. And now if we save and compile, does this one pop up? No, it does not. So let's go back to our main menu too. Let's compile and save, and let's go over here and then compile again. Is it popping up now? No, it is not. It's a really weird interaction that you get with these things. So let's see. If we bring this around, is it popping up? Let's see here. What I'm looking for, if you see when I move this, what I'm looking for is you see the big yellow outline. That's what I'm looking for there. So I'm not seeing it, so maybe we need to do the same thing we did before. We need to select our button, we need to take the anchor and put it dead center on it. Now if we save and compile, and we go back here and save and compile, does that pop it up? There we go, perfect. Alright, so I think the anchors were the issue there. So I'm going to rotate that around, and we're going to put this onto the face. Let's put that right there. Let's put the scale back down to like 0.2 on everything. That works. Maybe we can do like 0.3 on this one. Make this one a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's put it almost on top of the face. That works. Yeah, that works for me. Okay, and now what we can do is we can set up some cameras. So let's snap that back down to the ground. Whoops. Let's snap that back down. And there we go. I think that's good. And now what we can do is we can place some cameras inside of the world. So if on the top left here, under our places, I didn't realize it was called places, I can select all classes, and I just want to search for camera. And you can see here we get some normal cameras. So I'm going to take one camera, and I'm going to put it in front of our first cube. Let's see, would it look cool if like we angle it down maybe, and we like bring it back a little bit. Maybe that looks good. And now I'm going to just alt-click, drag this camera over, and I'm going to put the second camera to be in front of our second menu. That's perfect. And now basically what I want to do is I want to let these menus know that these cameras exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of our two widgets, and I'm going to create a variable inside of each of them, and I'm just going to call it our camera array. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the variable type to be of the class of camera actor object reference, and then I'm going to change it from a single variable to an array. So that works. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this again inside of our second widget, and I'm going to add, I'm going to call it camera array, and now we're going to change it to the type of camera actor object, set it to be an array, and we are good. I'm going to save and compile both widgets. And now what we can actually do is we can open up our level blueprint, because what we need to do is we need to communicate to those widgets who those cameras are. So what we can do is on begin play inside of our third person example map, what we can do is if we select our cameras, let's see, can we do it with both cameras at once? Let's try that. Can I right click and, no, we just need to select one of them. So we'll select our first camera, we'll go inside of our level, and now with it selected, you can see when I right click, we get a create reference to camera actor. Perfect, that's our first camera. Now if we select our second camera and go back inside of our level, we can right click and grab our second reference. That's perfect. And then what we can also do is we can select our cube actor that has our first menu, and we can right click and we can get a reference to our cube, and then from this cube we can get our widget, because that's what our component was called. We could rename it if we wanted to, but you see here how it's just called widget. But this is just a reference to that widget component. What we need from the component now is if we do get widget again, you can see we can actually now, this reference is to the actual widget itself. This was just to the component. And then with that widget, what we can do is we can cast it. And we need to cast it because this is our cube. That holds our first main menu widget. So when we cast it, we can now interact with that. And now from this reference, we can get our, actually we can set our camera array. That's perfect. And then what we just need to do is from this pin, we can do make array. I just want to add an extra pin, and you can see there we get camera 0 and we get camera 1. I'm just going to do this exact same thing with our other actor that holds our other menu there. So I'm going to select that actor, I'm going to go back to our level, right click, get the reference. From this reference we need to get the widget, and from the widget we need to then get the widget. So I guess I should re-say that. This is the widget component, and from the widget component we need to get its widget. And now once again we need to cast it. This time we're casting it to the main menu too, because that's what we put onto that actor. And now with this we just need to do the same thing. We just need to set the camera array, and we can just bring over that reference, and that looks good to me. And now what's happening is our widgets now know these cameras exist. So what we can do is we can go inside of our first menu, and we can grab our button, and on this button, on clicked, we can change our user's camera to switch over to the other camera. So what we can do is we can right click, and to switch our camera view, we need to get our player controller. So if we do get player controller, with this, what we can do is if we type like set camera, it should be set blend. Yes, set view target with blend is how we move our camera, or how we switch between cameras. So I'm going to hook this up, and now with our camera array, I know that our first camera is right here. By default, we're going to be on our first camera to look at our main menu. This is our second camera in that array, and that's the camera that I want to switch to when we click that button. So I'm going to get out camera 1, because that's how we set it up inside of our level blueprint, and that's going to be our target. And then we're going to move to that camera. Right now it's set to instantly change between the cameras. Let's set that to be like 1 second. So there's a 1 second movement between both cameras. We can shorten that, we can lengthen it, but that works for me. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go over to our second widget, which is our main menu 2. I'm going to take our button, and on clicked, I want to do the same thing. So I'm honestly just going to copy paste this code over. We might have to switch a few things. Nope, that looks like it copied just fine. But instead of switching to camera 1, when we click this button, we want to just go back to camera 0. So that works. And then I think we have just like 2 more small things that we need to set up. Inside of our level blueprint, let's open it up. And what we want to do is we want to set our initial camera at the start of the game. So I'm going to copy paste, but I'm going to delete this camera array real quick. And inside of our level blueprint, at the start of the game, so this is event begin play of this level, we just want to set our first camera to be camera 0, which is that first camera right there. And that we want this not to be over 1 second, we want this to be instant, so we'll set the blend time to be 0. And then there's one more thing we need to do, I know ahead of time, in that we should actually probably do this inside of our pawn. So inside of our main menu pawn on event tick, I just want to get our player controller, and I want to do set mouse cursor enabled, or set show mouse cursor, and we want to check that, and we want to put that on tick. Because what's going to happen is when we click, based on our project settings by default, I believe our mouse is going to disappear. This will just make it so our mouse is always on the screen, and that's what we want. So if we test this out, I think we should get some nice interactions here. So on play, we should immediately go to our first camera, as you see here, and oop, I forgot one more thing. It looks like there's something new that they added, I believe, with 420. They might have even added it with 419. You can see I can't click on our menus. There's one setting, and it actually messed with me while I was kind of not practicing, but just setting this up before I recorded. Inside of our cubes, so inside of the 2 actors where we put our menus, we need to select our widgets, and I think this is new. There's a checkbox here called Receive Hardware Input. I don't remember this ever being there before, and we need to check that. So we need to go into both of our actors, and we need to select, with our widget selected in top left, we just need to, on both of them, check this Receive Hardware Input box. And now we should be good to go. I don't remember this ever existing before. So now you can see we get our highlights, and I can click this, and you can see we move to the second menu, and we can click on our second widget, and we can go back to our first one. So you can see here that we can maybe have this be like a table with a radio, and maybe this is like a button to go to our options menu, and we click our button to go to our options menu, we could move our camera over, and now maybe this is our options menu, and we have a few scroll bars or check boxes and some resolution drop downs, whatever it may be. And if we wanted to like really spice this up with something simple, we could add some lights to this. So if I open up my cube actor, what we can do in the top left here is we can add a new component, and let's do a spotlight. So I'm going to add a spotlight, and let's position this. So let's move it over, let's raise it up, and let's shine it down. Let's like shine it down directly onto our menu. And just so we can visualize this a bit better, let's set the intensity to be like really high. Maybe that's a bit too much. Maybe like 20,000. Let's try that. There we go. That looks pretty good, so we can at least visually see it. So that looks good. Maybe let's raise it, lower it just a little bit. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to let our widget know that this light exists. So inside of my main menu 1, I'm going to add a new variable, and I just want to call this my highlight light. Let's do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it back to be a single variable because it just autoed it to an array, and I want to change the actor type to be of the type of spotlight. So it's a spotlight component, sorry, not a normal spotlight. This is a component because it's inside of our actor. So it's going to be a component object reference. And then with that done, we can go into our cube, which holds our main menu 1. And on the event graph, what we want to do is we want to, on begin play, we want to grab our widget. We want to get the widget out of it. as we did before, and now we want to cast it once again to our main menu 1. And now with our main menu 1, we can get out that variable and we can set our highlight light that we just made there. And now we just need to hook up our spotlight to that light. That works for me. And now inside the main menu 1, what I want to do is on our button, we can do some highlights. So we can do on hovered, and I want to go back and I want to do it one more time, and we're going to do on unhovered. And then with this, we can grab our light, we can set its intensity, and when we hover, let's set the light intensity to be 20,000, and that we can do that once again on below. And when we unhover the light, let's just set our intensity to be 0, so our light turns off when we unhover it. And I just want to go back to my spotlight, and I just by default at the start of the game just set the intensity to be 0, so our light isn't hitting anything. So now when we play, you can see we have no light, but then when we hover our button here, you can see the light turns on. So maybe this was like a dark area. Like if we turn down our skylight, let's see, where's the intensity? There we go. Like if we turn down our skylight and we turn down our light source, so let's do that a little bit. So maybe this is like a dark nighttime scene, and you want to make it so that maybe this is like a street light is standing over top of this box, and that when you highlight your menu there, the street light turns on in it. But you can see it like lights up our menu type of thing. So there's really some simple things that we can do to make our menu more interactive. We don't just have to have a flat image as a background or have just a dark black room in our widget inside of it. We can actually make our main menu, we can make it 3D. We can make it a little bit interactive. We can add some cool things to it, and it's really not very hard. What you really need to do though is you just need to make sure that your widgets know what they need to be interacting with, and that's why we made those variables. We let our widgets know who our cameras were inside of our scene. We let our widgets know who the lights were that they're turning on and off. We made those variables, and then we just made sure that we hooked up those variables. Since we already have our widget reference and our spotlight inside of this cube, we can easily let it know at the beginning of the game who that light is. And then inside of our level blueprint, if I find that, there we go. From our level blueprint, we can easily get our camera references, we can get our cube references, and then through that we can let our cameras know, or our widgets know who their cameras are. And that from there, it's really simple to just hook up the code of, on click of the button, change our camera over to that other camera, or on the highlight of that button, turn on that street light. It's really not very difficult. It's just really using actor references in just setting the references from some unique locations, I guess is how I would put it. And really that's it. All we did is we created a pawn, and this pawn doesn't really control anything. We don't want it to move around. We just want it to be our character. And that we just added inside of our world, we just made some blueprints and we added some 3D widget components to them. And that from there, that's basically it. So I hope that's useful for you guys. I hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.